How do you communicate with your contractor or your local heating and air company? In this video, we're going to talk about some of the forms of communication, ways you can communicate or reach out with companies, and some of the newer forms that we're seeing as of the last few years. So let's dive into this. I just want to first start out by saying that my favorite way of communicating to this day is still either face-to-face or over the phone. And I know with newer generations, folks are kind of getting away from that. As we go further into this, I will talk about how we will use some of these other forms of communication at Griffin Air, but my ultimate goal is to at least get them on the phone. Let's talk to them. Let's find out they're a real person. And even if they would prefer to text or email, that's totally fine. But at some point, I'm going to need to communicate with those folks in one way, shape, or form. So let's dive into this. First way is texting. A lot of companies have the capability, including at Griffin Air, you can text us. We have folks that will text us and make appointments. Depending on the situation, I will sometimes even text those folks back and say, hey, great to hear from you. We'd love to earn your business, but give us a call at this time so we can make sure we definitely get you on the schedule. And so I'll usually communicate that way. But I do like texts for things like if they need to send us some information or if they need to take a picture of something. Obviously, texting is superior to even a phone conversation if you could send a picture of what you're talking about, depending on the situation. That said, I don't like texting for everything. And what I mean by that is I'm in some of these Facebook groups that other heating and air guys are in, and sometimes they'll post pictures of their text messages, their interactions that they're having with their customers, and obviously sometimes they don't go well. The customer's upset about this or that, or the contractor might be upset. Either way, some of those pictures that they'll post of the conversations or the texts, I feel like would be avoided if they would get those folks on a phone call or talk to them face to face. Part of that is because with text messaging, it's hard to convey sarcasm or emotions. And because of that miscommunication with texting, sometimes it can become worse than it would have been if you would have just gotten them on the phone. I can tell you this, sometimes when I have to break bad news to a customer, if I call a customer and I say, hey, listen, I am so sorry. We're not going to make that appointment that we made for you. We're running a little behind, or maybe the technician that we had coming to you is sick. Recently, we had a technician get into a little bit of a fender bender, so he was running a little behind, and just getting them on the phone and explaining to them, look, we're really sorry. We are doing our best here, sort of deal. Usually, with most reasonable folks, that is fine. But I can tell you that texting is very unemotional. If you just text them and say, hey, even if you said it exactly the same way, hey, I'm sorry, we're running late, some customers might be a little more upset if you're just texting them. Just my 2 cents based on experiences. Next, we have emailing. I like emailing, especially when we're talking about something like a contract or anything that we'd want to make sure it gets in writing. I'll even tell homeowners sometimes when they've chosen us, they've hired us, and if I gave them, say, a good, better, best type proposal, I'll say, hey, email me. Let's get this in writing. I don't want to get to the end of this and me say, hey, I thought you were going with the best option, and you say, no, I said the better option. I don't want the best option. And so if you have it in email, something in writing, there's no confusion there. So email is great for that, and we use it all the time for stuff like that. But again, I think email is still a little out of touch when it comes to the emotional side of things and having some of those harder conversations. Sometimes I'll even email folks back and say, let me know when's a good time to chat. Let's go through this and let's talk. Next, we have website chats or bubbles. A lot of websites, when you go to, say, a contractor's website, they'll have the little chat bubble, and you can click on that and talk to, in some cases, a robot, but in some cases, there is a human on the other side of that chat bubble. Either way, to be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of them. I do know that I've heard marketing people say that you'll get 10% more of your customers or more appointments if you have a chat bubble. I remember a guy saying that on a podcast one time. And so for a while, I had a chat bubble on Griffin Air's website. I did away with it after a while, partly because folks on YouTube kept messaging our office at Griffin Air and they weren't reaching me anyway. We were dealing with some of that. But the other thing is I just didn't like how folks would message that and expect a response right away. And I don't like robots. I don't like call centers, which is something we're going to talk about in just a second. I just decided to do away with it. If that means we lose some of our customers when they would have preferred a chat bubble versus just giving us a phone call, I hate that. Next, a lot of websites like Google and Yelp have a way for you to contact contractors now. They have chats or they have messaging, things like that. I will still, in my experience, because of some of the things we've already talked about, I will usually just use those websites as a way to just respond to the customer are, but still funnel them to our phone so that way I can get them on the phone. There's no confusion. I can make that appointment with them. But it is very convenient. If someone happens to find you on one of these websites, they like something that they've seen someone else write or something like that, and they want to reach out to you, it's a great way for them to not have to hunt around. They're not going to have to go to your website now and find your phone number and all that. They're able to just click it right there and say, I want to talk to somebody at Griffin Air or another company, and get right to it. So some of these technologies that we've already talked about, they weren't even around when I first started in this trade. And I'm guessing that over the next decade or two, we're probably going to see other forms of communication or technologies that don't exist now during the making of this video. Good or bad, I think it's great that if they're allowing companies to connect with consumers easier and easier, that's always a good thing. Obviously, as I've said, we're still going to try to get those folks on the phone at some point. Let's see if we connect. Let's see if it's a fit. I'm not just shopping around trying to find the cheap guy. I'm shopping around trying to find the right company that I can have a long-term relationship with, someone I can connect with. That's just my 2 cents on that. But as I said a minute ago, I will just close with saying that I'm not a fan of anything that you're not actually talking to the company in some way, shape, or form. So again, I think some of these technologies we have today are great. I know a lot of companies use call centers or things like that. Someone's always going to pick up the phone even if it's midnight. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but you as a homeowner just understand that you might not even be talking to someone that's employed by the company, or you might be talking to a robot in some cases. So some of these chat bubbles, they're just a robot. They're just you're clicking on it and they're answering the questions based on keywords or however the robot works. But in some cases, there's not a human on the other side of that, and they'll capture your information and then have a human reach out to you in some way, shape, or form. If you are a heating and air company or a plumber or whatever, and you use call centers, don't get mad at me. It's fine. Whatever works for you. I just personally haven't been a fan of them in the past because when I've helped folks with our guide, because they're calling a call center or someone that's not an actual employee of the company and they're having an emergency or they're having an issue and they need to talk to someone quickly, sometimes the call center is a little bit of a gateway and it slows things down in my opinion. With Griffin Air, we have a voicemail that if someone just leaves a voicemail, an employee at our company, even if it's a junior tech that's just on call, will get that message and then you'll be dealing directly with us. So what are your thoughts? Please comment down below. I'd just be curious, how do you like to communicate with your heating and air company? Good or bad? What are some of your experiences? I think it would be helpful to see that and know, especially for some other heating and air companies that might read the comments to this video. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.